Welcome. Thank y'all so much for coming today. My name is Gina Salgado. I'm an educator. By the way, if you have not already, I do have a QR code and I have a bit.ly to this presentation. If you would like to go ahead and have it, go ahead, welcome. And this is going to be on every slide, so if for some reason it kicks you out or something, it's going to be available on every slide for you to either have the bit.ly or the QR code. So, and I do have closed captions for those that prefer it. So welcome, thank y'all everybody for being here today. Once again, my name is Gina Salgado. I am an educator. This will be my third year teaching, which I know I sound like a baby in the world of education with people that have been there for like 15 years. Welcome, come in, welcome. Thank y'all for being here. I'm surprised not as many of y'all were out partying last night. I appreciate y'all coming and being here. So I have done presentations at different conferences. I did ASET last fall, and I also did the EdTech conference at Region 1. I love education. When I was a first-year teacher, I was Teacher of the Year, super crazy. And I have mentored teachers last year. As soon as it was my second year, they're like, oh, you're going to go ahead and start mentoring teachers. So I was like, whoa. But I am a CTE teacher. I teach animation, graphic design, web design, principles of art and technology, and also some of the middle school CTE classes. So that's what I do. I'm a career and technology teacher. That's a little bit about my career, but about me personally, obviously I'm here, I'm a big anime nerd. I love anime, I love to cosplay, I like video games. I really like Berserk and JoJo, so if there's any fans out there, hey, what's up? Once again, the bit.ly and the QR codes are going to be on all of the slides, so that's just a little bit about me to preface this. And I really care about anime, manga, and video games because I get to teach that to my students and teach why it's important. So here's just a quick overview of what I'm going to be speaking about today. We're going to have workforce then versus now, what is UDL or Universal Design of Learning, manga in education, anime in education, and then video games in education. So just a quick little overview. So, as many of y'all might know or may not know, this was what a classroom looked like in the 1920s. It was very kind of sit down, listen exactly to what the teacher says. When she says to do something, or he, that's when you need to do it. Follow directions. There was really no opportunities for creativity. There wasn't very many opportunities for critical thinking. It was more how to follow directions and how to listen to authority, because that was what was expected of you career-wise. You had students, even young children, that would go and they would go and work in factories. And so that's what the original schooling institution was there to teach students how to do. It was to prepare them for factory work or jobs that were similar. I had a conversation with an educator about a year and a half ago. I was at a baby shower, and me and this educator were speaking, and I was saying, oh yes, I'm very much for students kind of getting to choose their own ways of instruction, how they want to learn. And this educator was like, well, I think that worksheets are just the way to go because it teaches students discipline. And my mind kind of went back and I was like, yeah, that's very, it was considered like, a classical learning environment. And so I was like, aha, they were kind of trying to get students into that mindset of something similar where it's listen to the teacher, follow directions, and get yourself ready to do as you were told, and not really quite as open to thought or critical thinking. So this is what employers look for now. Now, gone are the days of you're going to sit down and you are going to go straight to a factory. Now we have employers want to look for good communication skills, people that are leaders, teamwork, problem solving and innovation, people that are adaptable and have good self-management, and also computer skills. Tech skills are quickly on the rise, even for industries that aren't traditionally computer-driven, such as the medical field. A lot of doctors now need to do coding for the things that they do in the medical setting and similar occupations. So a lot of new fields are opening up that also are computer-based. So now your employers are going to need you to at least know how to have some basic Google Doc skills and some basic computer literacy to be able to complete a job properly. So let's go ahead and talk about what UDL is, legally speaking. So this is kind of what is written into ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act. This is what replaced No Child Left Behind. So this is the new law. But it is the first time that a instructional framework has been endorsed through the law. So universal design of learning as defined by the law is the use of technology consistent with principles of universal design for learning to support the learning needs of all students, including children with disabilities and English learners. So, and that has the document linked, so if you would like to look at that on your own time, you're more than welcome to do so. And that was put in place in 2015. So I'm going to, because I'm a teacher, y'all saw it coming, I'm gonna go with y'all 2 minutes. So I want y'all to think about, what does accessibility mean to you? And there's a couple of different ways that you can go about this. You can either write it down, good old pen and paper. You can type it somewhere on the notes on your phone. Or you can discuss it with the neighbor if you brought somebody, or if you're like, I don't want to talk to these people, I don't know anyone here, you're more than welcome to just to type it or to write it down. So if you're a talker, you can talk, you can type it, or you can write it. So I want to give y'all 2 minutes to do that. So once again, it is, what does accessibility mean to you? Seat. Alrighty, does anyone want to share what their definition of accessibility is, or what they kind of came up with? Yes.
So when I see accessibility, I see it as students at various learning levels are able to participate and enjoy the activity.
Yes, I love that. That was a great definition.
I'm a special ed, so.
Yes, love your special ed teachers. Y'all are amazing.
The content is done so that people from different backgrounds can all have the same accessibility, because we all have our own cultural backgrounds and knowledge that comes with that may not be equal to others.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Was a great definition. Yes.
Adaptability to disability.
That was a, oh my gosh, that needs to be on like a t-shirt or something. That's like the chunk of just like, yes, quick and easy. Hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. All right. Yes.
Mine's just kind of what she said, but it's just kind of like making sure to put everyone on equal footing, like no matter what it is, because like somebody might have a vocal disability, but they are mentally okay. It's like, okay, well, do we have ramps and like do we have multiple places that are easy for people who have to use like mobile aids, like
Yes.
Or even like language barriers can be a thing. Some people also just don't, even if they aren't, even if they are an English speaker, they might not learn the same. So, being able to adapt to any kind of just unique situation.
Yes, adaptability to the environment. Oh, I love that. Yes. Anybody else want to share? Yes.
The ability for people to find or use something easily, regardless of background, ability, or financial situation.
Oh.
Or patient locatability, times, comprehensibility, accessibility, times, costumes, accessibility.
Oh, that was like the beautiful, that was like the Webster version. I love it. Thank y'all all so much. Those were awesome. So the educators might be like, I've seen this a million times, so I apologize, but I do want to go ahead and show it because it is a great visual. So the first one is equality. It's everybody gets the same. The second one is equity, so we're kind of giving different people what they need. But true accessibility is, we don't need that fence. We are going to remove the barrier. So there was somebody that was adaptability as one of their definitions. So that is a great way to look at this photo as well, because everybody, no matter what height they are here, they are still able to enjoy the game because we removed that barrier of the fence there. And so while this is like a, kind of more of a metaphor and not something that directly is going to be in a classroom, it still symbolizes what we need to think about when we think about accessibility for all students in education. So these are just some quick statistics about the public school system here in Texas. So 11.8% of students are served through special education. Approximately 20% are English language learners or emergent bilinguals. I go to a school where that is way, way higher. I have a very large Hispanic population at my school. We kind of laugh because we're like, oh, our two white students they left the district, so we were like, oh, I got all my babies. So we have a very large percent of my students are bilingual in ELs, and then 100% of students need accessibility. So. Do any of y'all know somebody where they may not have a specific disability or a specific condition, but they still have a learning preference, or they still enjoy to do something a specific way, right? I don't have a particular, any particular like hearing impairments, but I need to be able to hear something very well. Like I have a little bit of difficulty hearing people, so I need to be sitting closer to somebody whenever I go to a presentation or something like that, because words get lost on me real quick. I don't have a disability, but it's still, I need that accessibility of being able to sit closer to a presenter, so that way I'm able to hear them better. So all of us we would love some accessibility and some different paths to be able to learn and be able to enjoy things. So let's go ahead, now we get to the fun stuff. I love this. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about specifically why manga, anime, and video games are excellent in the classroom. So this is more kind of on the accessibility side, and I do have the articles. They're all on JSTOR, I believe, except for maybe one, but these are all linked documents with the studies that were done. So first of all, just accessibility. Manga is accessible to bilingual students. So once again, I have a lot of students that come in speaking absolutely no English in my classroom. I actually have Spanish manga in my classroom, so that way if they are fresh out, I can be like, here is a book for you to enjoy. Same with other Spanish literature, so that way they can still participate in reading activities whenever we have those opportunities, and they're not just sitting there staring at a page, feeling left out because they can't participate in the learning and the enjoyment of reading. It is also amazing for students that are on the autism spectrum, because we get really vivid facial expressions, and also just the sometimes the chunking of information, where it's not reading a whole passage together, it's not reading a whole story together, it's looking at different chunks of the text together and putting it together in that story. So that is amazing for students with autism, and once again with our bilingual students as well. Just because it is more chunked together, they only have to read one part at a time instead of this long list of text, and then once they get stumbled on a word, they get discouraged and then they just don't want to read it. So it is great for that as well. It also assists students with literacy comprehension, so things like theme, beginning, middle, end. A lot of our, for anybody that might have reading teaks in their classroom, it is great to meet those reading teaks for literacy. I have media literacy, and I still like to use it just because we can never reinforce reading enough in all of our classrooms, no matter what we teach. Being able to read is a lifelong skill, and it is very important. So anything that assists with literacy is just absolutely helpful to any students, no matter where they are. If they're high flyers, they can still look at more complex plots and being able to kind of understand like different themes and things like that. So it kind of meets those students that are really high flyers, and then it also can assist some of the students that they don't want to read paragraphs at a time. They can maybe only handle little bits of text at once and still be able to understand that and understand the different themes. So here are just a couple of examples, and I know some of these you might be like, why would that be in the classroom? But let me explain. All of these, for the most part, go with different classes. I know you might be saying, what is Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, why would somebody use that in the classroom? I have seen it used before by social studies teachers to teach about Egyptian culture, and so this particular educator used that in their classroom. And I used Death Note this past year. We watched a couple of episodes with my 7th grade class just to discuss different themes such as what is justice, things like that. So we used it kind of as a conversation tool. I've seen gym teachers use Haiku for whenever they do their volleyball unit. Yes, I saw your shirt earlier. I love Haiku, it's one of my favorite series. But I've seen it used before in a classroom for that. So, before I get to that, I also have in my classroom as well, I had a student this past year, they read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and they were like, Miss, I don't understand a word of this book. And I was like, well, I can't not let you read, but what I can do is give you a reading supplement. And I handed him my graphic novel version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so he was able to have that accessibility, understand the story, so that way he understood while reading it kind of the background. It gave him a visual of what he needed while he was exploring that text. So it really is amazing. If you have any accessibility or you have these in your libraries, it's amazing to have. So, and also job skills. So this is specifically if you were to have an assignment of a student creating a manga, what skills would you be teaching? So, of course, there is leadership, problem solving, time management. They're going to have to take control of their own project to be able to create that. And if you make it into a webcomic where they have to publish it, it is those desktop publishing skills, can't talk today, or computer skills in general, to be able to publish that work online. That kind of takes that to the next step. And once again, for my teachers, it has those technology teaks. So we always like to be able to shove as many as we can into one assignment, so that we were like, good, did that, checked it off. But I have done this before. I teach animation, so that's kind of one of our things that we do is we go through and we practice our drawing. So it's not necessarily specifically manga, but any type of like comic, things like that. There's even in ed tech, there's things like Pixton where it's like a comic creator. So you could also do that for our youngers that maybe don't have the fine motor skills yet to create a super detailed comic strip. There's ways that we can do that digitally, or things like pacing. Yes, I saw a question.
So, do you let the parents know that you're introducing this into the curriculum per se? To say you're helping them, you're using this as a tool to help them be more engaged in the class, or because obviously this is something that may be foreign to a parent, seeing that they're reading this in school. What is this? Why is it a comic book? Comic book. How is this helping my students? Shouldn't it be something else? How do you have that discussion? Or do you?
So I will say I have amazing parents at my school as well. Overall, they really trust us at my school, and we really haven't had that many that come in and like question what we're doing, especially since I'm an elective teacher. They're more concerned with like, math and reading typically. But the parents that I have had that asked, most of them are actually fans of manga and anime. But if that was a concern, what I would say is you could always send home either, I'm trying to remember the one I do, where it's like the parent communication platform that I use, where I would either send it out of, here, this is what we're reading today, this is why it's beneficial, here are some reasons why we're using it in the classroom, or for the littles where maybe you need to send out like a paper copy, because I get it, not every parent is going to read the parent portal. You could also send out that same message as like a note home or something, if you had parents that were questioning, because I understand that we have so many different districts that are different. We have some where parents are on top of everything you do. They have you under a microscope. So I totally understand that might be an area of concern. But in my experience, they kind of trust that I'm the educator and that I have the student's best interest at heart. So that's what I would say. And if you have any other questions on how to do that, please come see me afterwards. I could talk about education all day. That's why I hosted the panel. I was like, oh yay. Alrighty, now let's talk about animation, particularly in education. So, and once again, I get to teach animation, so it is super fun for me. But it is a great tool to use in all classrooms. So again, it is accessible to all different types of students. We have, at least with anime in particular, you can either have it dubbed or subbed, depending on the audience or what you're trying to go for with your class or the needs of your students. You could have it dubbed with subtitles, or if you're doing a cultural study or something like that, you could also have like the subtitles on. It just depends on what your needs are for your students. But I have found that it is actually quite enjoyable for my students that are bilingual, because they get to also read going along with the not vocals, the speech that's happening during the animation. They really like it. They think it's engaging. So I've gotten very good reception in my classroom personally. It is also great for our students that have ADHD or any student that has hyperprocessing. So I don't know if there's any of y'all out there. I don't have ADHD, but when I was little, my teacher asked something about water, and I said something about bears. Like I was 3 steps ahead, because I was like, water, lake, you go camping by a lake. Sometimes when you're camping, you see a bear. So I was already 3 steps ahead of my teacher, shouting out random things, and she was probably thinking, what in the heck is this kid saying? And that's very common with our kiddos with ADHD, is they're always kind of 5 steps ahead, because they are processing so fast that they kind of make large jumps. But animation provides an opportunity for our students with hyperprocessing to be able to kind of digest, especially with things that are action-oriented. It's a little bit more engaging and enjoyable for them to follow, I find. It is also, there's been studies that have been done, but students retain information better whenever they're using animated pedagogical devices, which that sounds very like fancy, but it basically just meant that there was a study where they had students that were looking at just text, and then an animated section, and then also with some other factors, such as like the subtitles and whatnot. And the students that had the animation devices, they performed much better on the recollection portion of the testing that they did afterwards. So the recall was much better whenever they were presented with animation. So again, here are some examples that I've seen in different classrooms. We have Dr. Stone. I was like, that escaped me. I was like, it's not Dr. Stein. I was like, that's a totally different anime. Dr. Stone, I've seen used in like math and physics classrooms. Super cool, because there's obviously a lot of that in that show. Now this one. I show this episode to my students every single year. I know it is SpongeBob, but I do it whenever we talk about workplace behavior or even classroom expectations, because there's a lot of things that go wrong in that episode. There's a lot of things that go right too at the beginning, but there's a lot of things that go wrong. And I get every single year when I'm like, what should you not do when you're at work? And they always say, tie people up and put them in the back. Yes, that's not appropriate. Great observation. Don't create the appetizer. I get that one too. So, but they have fun with that one. But so I've used that one every single year now. I've shown My Hero Academia movies when we're doing different studies on like teamwork and things like that. So that's a great one for teamwork. I've also done Long Gone Gulch, which is a fan-created animation, just kind of to show students what some projects are that they could be able to do, create in the classroom with overdubbing and things like that. And it once again it's a more condensed version. You could do like, again, themes, beginning, middle, and end, those different literature, things that they need to know. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about can't talk today. Job skills. So again, if you're going to have a student creating an animation, now for the littles, once again, this could be done like on iPads. There are wonderful programs where they get to kind of pick an avatar and move their bodies, and then the camera is picking up what they're doing. So if they're waving their hands, the little animated character is following them, so they get to make animations that way. So that's very accessible for our youngers. And then all the way up to high school students using something like Procreate, if you have that in your classrooms, or even just hand drawing things and doing like flip books and things like that. I've seen different teachers use that for different assignments that aren't just a CTE classroom. But it's great for creating the job skills of collaboration, problem solving, innovation, computer skills, especially if it's like digital, and also again self-management, being able to for them to be able to self-drive themselves to complete a project on their own, have a little bit of that responsibility that is great for those job skills, because it's all about when they graduate. All right, one of the most fun and engaging ones in the classroom, we get to talk about video games. So one of the cool things about video games, and I actually, I was in on a session when I went to an education technology conference just a couple months ago, and one of the things that was discussed is the adaptive controllers that there are now for gamers. It is so cool. Just there's all sorts of things for, even for people who are paraplegic or quadriplegic, anything, like they have things that like move with their eyeballs. I've seen things that are for different types of like grips and whatnot. It is super cool. So anyone can be a gamer if they would like to. There's even things for people who are blind. It's just absolutely amazing the type of adaptive technology that is out there now. So that is great to use even for students that have a disability. That is still a way to make your classroom more accessible via video games. And it also breaks down those barriers for students with disabilities. This is, once again, a study that was done. This is actually done a little while ago, but I still think that it's a great study because this was when video games weren't quite as engaging as they are now, and the study still showed that it was great for students with disabilities. So now there's even more technology and accessibility out there, so I'm sure that's probably even more true now than it was back then. It is especially for autonomy and goal setting, to be able to do something by yourself, work towards a goal, especially on a lot of these like game-based learning platforms that we are seeing pop up, and I'll get to that in a minute. But a lot of the game-based learning platforms have that as well. And it is also more effective than traditional learning, kind of with the animation that we saw. Students learn better when they get to be in control, move their character around or whatever it is. It helps them learn better. It's just, the data is there, it is more engaging, it helps foster that learning. So, to my educators in here, have any of y'all used GimKit? I can't tell you how many times I've sat there on a Friday and I'm like, I don't want to do anything, it's Friday. I've turned on GimKit. I can't tell you how quickly I have gotten kids that do not speak to start screaming at each other and get very competitive over playing capture the flag on freaking GimKit. And all they're doing is answering all of my questions that I would just put in a test, and they're running around and they are getting super competitive, answering those questions, practicing them, and playing their game. and it takes the entire class period. It's great. I just get to sit back and watch the chaos unfold. It's amazing. It is my favorite thing on a Friday. I'm like, oh yes, we're doing a GIMP kit. And also, it looks great when admin walks in and they're like, everyone's engaged. Yes, they are engaged. They're playing a game that took me 15 minutes to put questions down, and now that you think that I'm a genius. This is also Minecraft for education. I've seen a lot of teachers do some really cool things where students build different projects in Minecraft. So that is a platform that I've seen, and that's free to use, I think, for schools. So I've seen a lot of different projects done through that, where it's kind of like a, you know, it's essentially like, you know, your own little virtual reality of, you know, being able to build whatever. So again, I've seen lots of really cool things built through there. Same with, oh, I can't think of the name, but there's something that's kind of like Roblox, but it's like for education. I have a subscription to it and I love it. It's also great for animation. If you're interested in it, stay after and I'll try to look it up. The name is escaping me right now, so I can't think of it. I've also seen Wii Bowling used in a classroom. This was used in a math classroom to talk about angles. So you can get creative with these things. If there's a will, there's a way. There's a video game you can use for it that'll look really good to admin, or it's just fun to do for your kids or for students. So it is great to use for, you know, anything like that, especially getting active. And also there's the Animal Crossing Museum. My students take a virtual field trip each year whenever we're talking about art history, and we go and visit my museum in Animal Crossing, and we go and visit all the pictures, and they get to write down some things that they learned, like artists and design principles that they saw for some of these pictures, and kind of what different art eras certain paintings or certain sculptures were made in. So that is one of my favorite lessons that I do too, is our little virtual field trip. There we go. And job skills. So once again, especially, oh, very cool. Do we have a question?
Yeah, what are the costs of some of those things that you're showing?
Hold on, question back there. Yes, so some teachers, they can use Minecraft in their classes. So if I were you, I would go to your teacher this year and say, can we do a project in Minecraft education? And blow your teacher's mind. Be like, it's a genius right there. Yes, I had a question up front.
Hey, what are the costs of some of those things you're showing, like GIMP kits and
Here, let me-
Prodigy, if you want to share that?
I wasn't sure about Prodigy.
So, sorry, I don't.
Yeah, go ahead. No, this is a conversation.
Minecraft's total cost is going to be anywhere between $26.99 and $29.99. You can sometimes go to other sites like G2A and you can get it on sale for maybe even like $6. There will also be times where it's free. There's also, if you have a Windows computer, you can use it for free. For people or
Gotcha. I wasn't sure. We got it for free, I think. We've only used Minecraft for education for like specific projects, so I wasn't sure exactly how much it costs. I do pay for a subscription for GIMP, but I think it's like $5 a month. So for me at least, it is worth every single cent. It is worth every penny. It has saved me so many times for whenever I want to do practice, or whenever I'm like, ooh, my kiddos weren't really getting that. I also love, for the educators, I love that it shows the data that comes up, so you actually get to see question by question the breakdown, and you also get to see the breakdown of the students. Now, I will say sometimes you have to be on the students for some of those things, because they'll put something like Voldemort's dirty sock as their username, and it's like weird. Yeah, it's just, I've gotten some weird ones, and so I had to be like, yeah, no, we're not going to put that as our name. So job skills. Oh, yes.
I was actually have a little story about it, 'cause I was using Blookit, which is very similar to
Yes.
naming.
Blookit's
And,
great.
I would read out the names out loud as people were winning or losing to pass their score. So the kids said it'd be funny, they put in every single one of their names either Uwu or Owo, just to try to make me say it out loud.
I do the same thing too, and they put things like, this is gonna be weird, they have some things like Discord Kitten, and I was like, why are y'all coming up with that? These are like 7th graders. And then I had Will Smith, Chris Rock, and then yeah, just they're Jada Smith and stuff like that. So we had lots of like slapping and stuff like that happened via GIMP Kit. So it gets really interesting sometimes with the kids' names.
The funniest one of them was, and I teach high schoolers, and
Yep.
one of the ones they were trying to give me a break was a tier 3 Pokemon sub.
That's a lot. that was a lot. That's like 3 layers of like meme lore. Like that's like getting really into there. They think that they can think of things that fly over our heads. I'm like, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm like, I keep up with y'all pretty well. Yes.
So I looked at Prodigy. Prodigy is free, and it's free for the students to use. The only way they make money through it is an optional parent upgrade, which gives them, hairstyles and cosmetics.
Gotcha.
But it's completely free.
Wonderful. I need to keep that in mind. Thank you for letting me know. I have never heard of Prodigy. I've heard of Classcraft, but that's like more for like classroom management types of stuff. So I have never heard of Prodigy. I need to keep that in mind. Awesome. Thank y'all for telling me these resources. That's amazing. I love anything ed tech, so all of it I like to hear. Alrighty, job skills. So once again, we have that kind of collaboration, especially if you're doing this as a team. You can never create a video game by yourself or a gaming level, things like that. You have your problem solving, of course, especially if there's coding involved. And again, for littles, you can do things like where it's like the block coding, where basically it's just like a pull down menu and they click which action they want to do. So, but they still need to have some basics of, my game isn't running, why? And kind of go back and look through and see why it's not working. So even for our youngers doing the block coding, there's still a lot of that problem solving. And of course, computer skills if you're doing this digitally. I suppose there could be a way that you could do this, pen and paper, at least with like designing something or designing a video game. But overall, I think you would probably want to do this digitally. And once again, it teaches that self-management. They're going to have to be their own boss. They're going to have to be in charge of their own learning to do a project like this. Yes.
So, I do esports coaching. So, it's actually, I don't know if you want to know, but like, it's preparing them for potential career skills as well.
Exactly.
Because in like, you start summer camps for like football kids. Like,
Esports camps.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so,
I'm starting one this year for my kiddos.
yeah, that's what I do. I love that. But because the U.S. overall is about 10 years behind Asia, 7 years behind Europe in the field of esports. But considering they keep arguing each year to win it in the Olympics, we might want to get on that.
Exactly. Well, and kids are getting scholarships. Kids get scholarships for playing video games. Gone are the days of us sitting on our video games for hours and hours and our parents saying, "You're not doing anything, it's worthless." Sorry, but it's no longer a worthless skill. Sorry. My parents are here and I love them, but I remember being told many a time, "Get off your video games and do your homework."
I have a client who's just turned 18 and they're making 6 figures playing video games.
Or kids that make video games too and then sell it like to a bigger like company, and then they're an 18-year-old that's a millionaire. Literally, we had a student that I went to high school with that happened. It's crazy.
99-cent games on Steam, it's just like Pac-Man, but different.
Yep, I know, and they make it, and then they start making big bucks just off of the things that they sell, or like you said, being able to participate in esports tournaments where they get big money just for participating and for placing well. So.
Or you can get heroes salaries too, just like Overwatch, League, all that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's an amazing career, and it's one that's becoming much more accessible to all students. It's not anyone can do esports if they would like to. So the more we get students to participate in things like this and participate in these different types of media and technology, the better prepared they're going to be for the real world. And that's the whole reason I wanted to do this panel. Yes.
So we keep talking about, junior high kids and high school kids. What about special needs college kids?
Special
I have
needs
a
college
daughter
kids.
that's getting ready to go to college, and she is on the special needs. She's on the autism spectrum. What can we do at home to help these kids? Because she didn't have this stuff in school.
Yeah, exactly, and I totally understand, and it's really awesome now that there are so many tools that we can use that are free. Once again, I would. It kind of depends on the disability and what the specific needs are of your child. And so I would be using these things, at least if it were me and I was put in that position, I would just use these things to reinforce some of the things that are being learned in the classes. So finding something like a manga that has to relate to that subject area, and there's one for, you know, everything out there. It seems like there are shows, you know, for you know, social studies. There are things, manga for psychology and all sorts of different subjects. Even those ones that are more higher level, that is all the more reason to be looking at these different shows or mangas or video games, because a lot of them have that high level critical thinking. Do I have any like Nier Automata fans in here? That is an extremely philosophical game. Very, it's like, yes, Soul Calibur 6. I love that. But yeah, there are so many things that are that really high level critical thinking, and these things are that accessibility to be able to meet the course structure to a fun and accessible way of understanding that content. And so again, that's why I put together this panel, is that anyone can use this in any subject. All these things are accessibility to all students, to all children. It's just a way to foster a love of learning for any subject or for anything that you would like to learn. So that's what I would say for any college, especially for college age. Sometimes I wish I taught a college class, because there are so many great shows that use like more philosophy, but it's like a rated M show or something like that, so I can't show all of it, or it's just a little too dark for high school students, so I completely understand. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead, let me see. All right, I know there's another panel coming up, but this is kind of the last thing I'm gonna do with y'all. This is something I do with my students as a little wrap up. So we have a 3, 2, 1. So 3 things you learned, 2 things that you would like to know more about, and 1 question that you have, like based off of kind of what we talked about today. So I'm gonna give y'all 3 minutes to do that. Once again, you can either write it down or type it in your phone or discuss with the people around you. Yes, sir.
There's a really great series called Guide to STEM subjects, like in advanced ones like relativity and microbiology.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's a public library.
Especially for STEM.
Yeah, it's very accessible, and it teaches basic concepts. And
Do you mind telling me what that is, just so that way I can write it down?
Guide to, and then fill in the blank.
Okay.
Class. Could be cellular biology, linear algebra, relativity. So these are advanced STEM things, but it's covered at a level in middle school as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know that there's like Math Girls, which is a manga series where it kind of breaks down some of like these like fun equations and things like that, but having that where it's a guide, I'll say the more I know the better, because I keep like some like goofy like manga ones, but to have that as a resource, that's awesome. Because
Any middle or high school library helps.
thank you so much for telling me that. That is so cool.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Have a good one. Alrighty, does anyone want to go ahead and ask their one question that they have? Yes.
So I think about this from also more of a high school level where you're setting them up for college. What is the line and how do you kind of deal with balancing accessibility without watering down the challenge in many circumstances where it gets, you're so worried about making it accessible that some of the real challenges that are important to the material get kind of lost?
Yeah, and I think that is something that we need to talk about because especially for students with disabilities or our bilingual students, here's the thing, just because they have a disability or they have a need does not mean that they should not be challenged. I absolutely and 100% agree that our students that have a disability, they are able to accomplish anything that they set their mind to, I truly believe. It might look differently, but they can still do those same standards just in a different way. It's the same thing as, instead of writing down, 5 different things, they could, do that orally, or they could participate in a project. It just might not be the same coding language, or it might not be the same type of analysis, but they are still doing those things. They are still meeting that same standard, but just in a different way. Because I absolutely do not agree with, just like water down what they're supposed to do. It doesn't matter for them, and that they won't ever be needing this, blah, blah, blah. That is 100% what I am against. So that's what I would say is they still need to have kind of that same rigor, but it's just going to look different for different students because even, like I said earlier, even people that don't have a disability or they need their learning to look a little bit different, we all have learning preferences and we all have learning needs that we need to be met in order for us to learn. And that doesn't need to be easy. They still need to be challenged because life is challenging. They still need problems that they're going to have to overcome. That's just how life is. But if we make it more accessible, then that is giving them kind of that help that they need to overcome those hurdles. So that's at least what I feel like with accessibility, is that it's not doing the work for them, it is helping them so that way they can overcome that by themselves. Yes. Oh, okay. Did I have a question over here? Oh, just agreeing. Yeah.
How would you go about getting parents to maybe also engage with it? Because I came from a sort of, I also went to, I graduated from a school that was the highest Hispanic population. And definitely for me in high school, a lot of times anytime we had computer stuff to deal with, I was always kind of left behind.
Yeah.
Because it just, while doing it wasn't the problem, it's just had no internet access at home. I didn't have a computer. It took me going to college to literally start being able to do the more modern assignments because, well, when you grow up broke, you're just broke.
Yeah.
So, how would you go about finding ways to kind of circumvent,
Bridge that gap?
yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that I do with parents, because it's the same thing too. A lot of our kiddos, they have their phones, or same with the parents, they have their phones, but they might not always have a computer at home, and so you might not really be able to do making a video game or doing an animation project on your phone. You can, but it's just not quite as typical. Especially a lot of us teachers, we don't always want our students to be out on their phones as well. But something I do personally at the beginning of the year is I give parents a technology guide, and I also give them a kind of in my course syllabus, I give them an outline of what we're going to be learning and why that's going to be supporting them in their learning, supporting them in life. Because once again, I'm a career and technology teacher, so I'm trying to get students that last day. I'm trying to prepare them for their graduation, and so to help that and bridge that gap, that is something I do. Is I send parents a technology guide on not only how they can check parent portals and things like that, but how they can even help their students check their school email, how to access the different Google. The Google Suites and things like that, so slides and whatnot, Google Docs. So I just kind of send something. It could also be I've seen different teachers do a step-by-step guide on the computers where it has a voiceover or something, which is great. But again, not everybody has that accessibility. So while you could send a video or something like that, if you have the ability to put that on like a parent communication platform. If that is not available, then I would just do kind of a step-by-step, like here's like what you click on to open email, or here's how you log into your parent portal, things like that. Or if it's more of why it's important to be learning, you could also just send something home. Use all of the articles, all of the sources that I used to put together this presentation, and just say, you know, this is research supported as to why we are using this in our classroom. I do believe that this is best practice. So, any other questions? Yes.
You know, I'm not worried about like using technology because that's like really universal to a lot of students, right? They all like that thing, but when it comes to anime and manga, like especially in high school, students have already like grown and developed their social views and their ideologies. What do you do about those students who are kind of already decided, oh, you know, this is kind of weird. It's not for me. I don't like it. People who engage in this are weird. Because like it's when I was in school, you know, I think I'm pretty well rounded in terms of athletics and those kinds of things. But I still feel around athletic students, I couldn't talk about any of my anime interests because I felt weird getting called out to class.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do with those students, and how do you maybe like protect or bring out the other students who do engage and enjoy these activities versus those who won't engage or minimalistically engage with the activities, considering they think it's weird, they don't like it, they don't want to be associated.
Yeah, and I've had that happen with a couple of students. It's really weird. A lot of mine do like it. So in a way, like some of the ones that don't like it, they almost get ostracized now. It used to be, for at least for those of us that are like old school, you used to get bullied for it. You used to think that people thought it was weird. If you liked anime and manga, like you were the odd one out. Now, at least like with my student population, it's completely the opposite, where they're like, oh, you don't watch Naruto, man, like forget you, like what are you doing? So it's very different now. But I will say, one of the things that I kind of like to do if I have a student that's like, I'm not really into that, ask them what movies they like, or what video games they like, things like that, and then help them bridge that gap of, okay, you like this is something that you might like. And also, I find that people like things more like Death Note or like Black Butler if they're not always in like a Japanese setting, which I know sounds weird, but for some of them they're like, oh, that's like weird because that's a culture I don't understand. So maybe finding something that takes place in a different area might help as well to kind of let that be their introduction. I would also just say, again, for me personally, giving them other options as well. If it's just, it doesn't have to be anime, but animation, because it's that same type of appreciation. And you know, everyone likes Disney movies or things like that. It's still using those same things, but it's just forming it in a different way that they might be more used to. They might be more used to American animation or other like graphic novels or comic books and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like Japanese or anything. Anything like that. All these things are still beneficial, even if it's not Japanese per se. And I think I had one more question right here.
What would be your recommendation for things to help with specifically communication skills? I'm not an educator, but I'm a manager in a voice call center.
Oh,
So I have to
awesome.
coach people on their calls to improve their communication skills with
Mhm.
customers.
Yes. So you were saying how to use that like for your occupation?
Yeah, like with communication skills specifically.
Yeah, so I would use it and just kind of go over again, like you might show a clip, and it doesn't have to be something super long. Like I don't always show the whole SpongeBob episodes or whatever. It just kind of depends. But I will sometimes just pick out a clip and show it to them, and then say, okay, what was something good that you noticed? What's something that needs improvement, or what went wrong here? What went right? And so having them analyze it is also a great way having them learn, because that's them critically thinking and understanding and coming to their own conclusion, and then you can discuss. Thank you. We're almost done. So that's what I would do personally if if in your occupation is using these things and using it to help them understand kind of what's appropriate and not appropriate in this situation. And then that's in like a more fun, engaging way, instead of just sitting through the same training video over and over. It's like, okay, let's do this in like a more like kind of fun way where we can discussing the same things, but just in a more engaging way. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I will be available outside if you have any more questions, but I know there's another panel that's coming up, so I want to go ahead and respect their time, respect your time. Thank y'all so much for coming here. It was a blast to do this with y'all. Just remember, the slides are up here. You can keep that. You can email me. Let me see. When went ahead and did that. Here's just my thank you. I do have my email on there if you ever would like to contact me. Like I said, I do mentor teachers, so if you ever have any questions or you would like resources or anything like that, please feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to discuss anything or answer any questions you have, and I'll also be available out here as well. So have a great day, you guys. It's been my pleasure.